this is what happens when it's live. I'm getting a message in from work. Hold on a second.
Welcome to The Other 51. I'm Brian, and this week we're talking to Nicole Schuman from PR News. Nicole, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining me this week.
Thank you. I've actually never been on a podcast before, so this is very exciting.
You've been working in digital media since like 2003, and you've never, I can't believe you've never been on a podcast before. That's
never.
Shocking.
I know. One of my first jobs, I did work in radio. I used to work for WGR 550 for a very brief time in Buffalo, doing I think it was 2020 sports back then. Can't remember, but sports updates. So I did work in radio, but this is a bit different.
This is yeah. So welcome. I'm glad we could be your first foray into this new world of podcasting. So first of all, I mean, we kind of got to talk about it because we're recording this on March 12th, and it's like I don't know if it's the middle yet because it's still happening, but it's the week where everything with COVID-19 and coronavirus is just kind of hitting the fan here. And you're down in New York City, and I'm just curious, what's it like living down there right now?
It's bizarre. My parents are very concerned. They still live up in Buffalo, so I think things are a little bit different up there. Also, I work for, I'm a reporter for a trade company, PR News, which deals with all sorts of information and news regarding the public relations industry. So this has really been something that I've been paying attention to every day pretty much for like the past week or so, past 2 weeks even. So yeah, I mean, you know, I'm working from home today. My fiance's here. We're all working from home today. The cat's very excited about it. But yeah, it's different. You know, we just have to be, you know, we have to be smarter about things. But it definitely is a little anxiety inducing because, you know, I take the train to work every day for, you know, an hour each way, and you know, just being squished in there like sardines, and, you know, so you think about just like, you know, the situations you should be in, the situations you shouldn't be in, and, you know, we're just trying to be smart about stuff. So we're working from home now and avoiding public transportation. You know, it's kind of a bummer. A lot of big events have been canceled. You know, I was going to go see St. Bonaventure Bonnies go play at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, hopefully this weekend, but now that's been you know, no fans are allowed there. So it's kind of a bummer. So we're just kind of, you know, it's unprecedented really. So we're all just trying to figure out like what's okay to do, what's not okay to do. You know, and it's kind of rough, but I feel like we're kind of, you know, I was thinking about like, okay, well, what can we do this weekend to like make sure we don't have cabin fever, like go out and do something. And, you know, we're just trying to come up with different ideas for that besides going to the grocery store. So, you know, and a lot of people are feeling the same way. I did take the train to work yesterday, and it was a little bit more sparsely populated than usual. So I think a lot of people are just trying to be proactive and, you know, help out in that way.
Yeah, it's especially weird. Like, I'm up in Western Central New York, teach at Oswego, live in outside of Rochester, and we just had our first case late last night. We had our first case here in Monroe County where they announced somebody who tested positive for coronavirus. Yeah, I know, right? It's so weird because it's like, yeah, we're doing all the proactive things. Like SUNY is closed and we're going online. It's not closed. We're going online for several weeks or the rest of the semester. And, you know, it's about that containment idea, right? But it's very weird to be in a place where like the people aren't sick. They're going to get sick because it's probably going to spread everywhere, but they're not sick yet. And yet there's this weird kind of feeling of like impending doom. I don't know. It's it is this very weird, like I was using the word unprecedented in class yesterday. And I'm like, I know it sounds like hyperbole, but it is, we have no plan in place for an actual global pandemic. So it is just such a weird time to try to figure out like regular logistics, going to the grocery store, you know. I don't know. You've been writing about this. You've been thinking about this. Maybe you can explain this to me. Why the run on toilet paper?
Oh, geez. Well, that I haven't been touching. I don't even know about
Literally.
that. I mean, I guess if people think they can't leave their house for a while, they want to make sure, like, they have toilet paper. I don't know. I mean, you can leave your house. Like, there's not a ban on leaving your house here. I mean, that's totally fine. But yeah, I don't understand. One of the articles I read said that things you really should be stocking up on are, making sure you have like cold medicine
Right.
or, Advil, things that you'll probably need if you do end up getting, this virus, and just trying to manage your symptoms and different things like that. But yeah, man, I don't know. People are buying water, like all this stuff. I mean, it's like blizzard preparation,
Right.
but there's no blizzard, so it's very strange.
And you're a Buffalo gal, like I'm a Buffalo guy, and so you get a 6-pack. I mean, that's blizzard prep, so that we'll have to stock up on the good beer too.
Yes, I was concerned yesterday when I heard that trade may be suspended from Italy, and I was just like, should we go out and buy wine?
Yes.
Because I don't want there to be a shortage.
Well, the answer to that is always yes. So I wanted to ask you, you mentioned you've been writing about it from a PR perspective, and you've been writing about the story for about a week now. And I'm wondering what that's like for you kind of when you come home from work personally. Because I know my wife has been editing a lot of press releases and a lot of stuff at her job for like companies, they're putting out their coronavirus statements, or they're like, kind of prepping for it. And you've been writing about it. So what's that like for you kind of when you come home and you've been dealing with this stuff all day on a professional level?
It's I mean, the work is fascinating because looking at it from a PR and communications aspect, it's really interesting to see what companies and organizations are doing to be proactive and how they're communicating that message to the people that mean most to them, to their consumers or their audiences or their members. So we're kind of looking at different brands to see, who's doing it right, who's doing it wrong, and I don't even know if you could say who's doing it wrong right now because, like I said, this is unprecedented. But, I mean, today we're looking at stories about programmatic advertising, and, my boss was served an ad for, a cruise company to take a cruise today on Facebook or whatever. And she's like, okay, that needs to stop right now because it's Princess Cruises just announced about half an hour ago that they're halting all cruises through May. And they put out a great tweet where the president is actually in a video giving the statement, which is awesome. And that's a great way to deliver a message, especially digitally. But yeah, there are some companies that haven't shut off their programmatic advertising or, are just like, we need your help, the economy, blah, blah, blah. When really they should be looking at the well-being of, their audience or their consumers or those sorts of things. So it's interesting to really look at it from that perspective. And also it's kind of cool because, you have that journalist point in you that's like, oh, I'm the first on the lines to see this. But coming home and after you're just in this all day, all the weeds and all the news and this and that, it is, I mean, and I do, I'll be honest, I suffer from anxiety and, it is stress inducing and, you kind of get caught up in this, you start spiraling and you start thinking about, I used to be a big fan of like The Walking Dead and not saying that we have a zombie pandemic, but, you just kind of get, this wave comes over you of like, oh my God, you feel trapped. Like, what are we going to do? Like, what's going to happen to the world? And, you kind of, spiral outward and you start thinking about all these different things. So what we talk about in the office is taking everything one day at a time. You can't, and I mean, anybody should think about this in this way if they can also. You can't think too far in advance right now because we are learning new information every day. So, like I said, to try and, calm your nerves, quell your nerves, those sorts of things, look at things one day at a time, say, okay, this is what's going on today. This is the messaging that we're seeing. Let's be proactive. And that's really all you can do. Another thing, like try to think about is, like being proactive and those sorts of things. You can only control what you can control, and you can't worry about the things you can't control because there's nothing you can really do about them.
Right.
So, just kind of, trying to follow the rules and this and that. And one of the things I might do this weekend is just, kind of get off text and get off Twitter and actually give people a call. Some of my friends, like, we haven't called each other in ages, maybe have a conversation to see how they're doing, talk to my parents. It's kind of hard being away from family right now. And if you have a pet, spend time with your pet. Pets are cool because they have like no idea what's going on right now. And they just want all your love and all your attention, and they're always happy. And, all my cat really cares about is like where his next meal is coming from. So, we're trying to just keep him happy and those sorts of things. But, I'm also, I'm still going to the gym. That's been a really important part of my routine. I swim, and yesterday I probably just swam the crap out of my swim for like 20 minutes, going as fast as I could, because you have so much pent up energy, so much pent up tension. So, and some people, don't go to the gym if it's, not safe right now. I'm not saying that, but, whether you can go out and take a walk or, do something on your, I don't know, we bought an old Wii, so we can do like Wii boxing or whatever. We're a big video game family, but, just to make sure, you kind of unplug for a little while and do something that takes your mind off things, read a book, kind of simple stuff like that. It's going to be hard, but, it's also important to, you got to take a break so you can stay sane.
Yeah. So you've been working in media for a long time. You've had I'm looking at your LinkedIn resume right now. It's just a fascinating career. So I usually have people trace their career path. So kind of talk, maybe big picture, like your career from when you graduated Bonas to where you are now, and kind of maybe looking more the overall arc of your career and your writing and the type of storytelling that you do.
Oh, man. So I remember just growing up and then going to Bonaventure, like my number one dream was always to write for the Buffalo News. And back in those days, it's like the old days, they would never hire someone really right out of school. So I actually decided I wanted to go to grad school right away. I had always wanted a master's degree. My mom went to school, had a master's degree, and it was just something that I saw as the next step in the path of what I wanted to do. So looking back on it, it might have been worthwhile to take a little time off and, work in the working world for a while. But I went right away, and that also had its benefits because you were used to the pace of school and being in it and all of that. So I had started at Syracuse in their master's program for communication, and I actually ended up having to take a leave of absence because of my anxiety issues. And it was a hard thing for me. It definitely was, for someone who's type A and always going, it was hard to have to back off and say, hey, I need a break. Something's not right. So that was hard, but I ended up coming home to Buffalo, taking a couple of months off, and I ended up enrolling in their master's program there at University of Buffalo in the humanities. I studied English and American Studies. I wanted to be a culture writer. That would have been great, being a music writer my whole life. But things are very different nowadays. But grad school was great because it did teach me how to think critically, kind of opened up my mind. I learned how to do research quite a bit more and, really, really interested and really liked the work I did in some of the classes I was in. So that was great. I did a lot of research and, like the history of Rolling Stone and advertising and what caused its journalistic demise and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty interesting. I did a lot of research in that aspect. But then I got out of school and, being in Buffalo, I decided, everyone was like, hey, you should stay here and help rebuild the city on this, on its upswing and blah, blah, blah. So I ended up staying in Buffalo for 10 years. And unfortunately, I couldn't get a job in media per se, so I ended up taking a job. My first job was in PR and events for a nonprofit, and so I always wanted to write. It was always in the back of my mind. Through these sort of communications jobs, I was able to learn about social media in about 2007. Ended up really getting involved in social media and adding that to my resume. And all the while I was doing, freelance writing kind of here and there, whether it was like concerts or, I think I wrote about bikes. I don't know, like all different kinds of things along the way. I was always able to reach out and find a publication that was kind of interested locally in what I was doing. So that was good. So I was able to keep my skills intact that way, but also while bringing on all these social media skills. So eventually, my job turned mostly to social media and digital communications, and I was offered a contract job in 2014 to come work for AOL, which is now, God, I don't even know what they are now, Verizon Media, I don't know, one of those things. Things are always getting bought. But I was offered a contract job to move to New York and work on this project. It was probably my favorite job of all time. It was a year-long sponsored content project called This Built America, and it was sponsored by Ford. And it was a huge project, a year-long project. And what we did was I came on as their full-time social media person to kind of promote and get the word out about the story and about the different stories that we were doing. We went to each of the 50 states, and we told a story about a company, an American-made company that was there. Some of them were newer, places like Shinola Watches or Hayden Flour Mills out west, and they seem newer actually, because some of the stories that we told were companies that were much older. I was able to go to Charleroi, Pennsylvania, and write about Pyrex, which everyone has in their kitchen, and to write about, factory labor and what these huge corporations meant to smaller towns and the changes that they've seen over time, with a lot of manufacturing moving, out to other countries and people losing their jobs. We wrote about Tabasco, we wrote about Airstream, all these amazing companies that really had interesting stories. And, to be able to read all those stories and to be able to be a part of that was a huge thing, even though it was a sponsored content project. And some people, are kind of scared off by sponsored content when it comes to journalism. We had, great leadership and, made sure it wasn't just a giant advertisement. It was, one of probably the most fulfilling projects I've ever worked on, to just be able to talk to the people that were involved, and they cared so much about their businesses and about the people that were working for them, people that were affected by them. And that's I ended up moving to New York, and I've been here for the past 6 years. And, from that social media project, I ended up working for About.com, which is now Dotdash. Everything changes names all the time. From there, I worked brand side for a little bit at Kaplan Test Prep, working in education, social media, community management type things. And now I have the opportunity to, work full time in journalism and, write about communications. And as you see on my resume, I feel like I've worked in every aspect of communications. So it's a good background for the position that I'm in now at PR News, because I am able to look at these different ways that we're communicating messages and, brands communicating to audiences. And, social media is a huge part of that right now. And it's not going away anytime soon. But things are always evolving and changing. And to be able to write about that is really great. I love writing about media. I am obsessed with media. Like I said, I need to shut off the news now and then. And this is something, I think about David Carr, who, the famous writer, worked for, the New York Times, and the work that he did, and just how we really have to hold, everybody accountable in messaging, whether it's brands or whether it's the government or whether it's, news organizations. And To be able to do that and critique media and write about, the different things that organizations are doing is just really fulfilling to me. And I'm hoping I can continue on with that for quite a few years to come. So that's kind of how it is. But in terms of storytelling, sorry, I tend to ramble, which is probably why I don't have a podcast. In terms of storytelling, I mean, I think this comes just from growing up in Buffalo and growing up around a lot of, blue collar and middle class people. I think when you're telling a story, the heart of it is the people that are involved and how it affects them. Everything affects normal people, common people, whether you're talking about a place going out of business or, whether you're talking about the coronavirus or, whether you're talking about the stock market or, whether you're talking about toilet paper. I mean, everything is, going to impact someone somehow. And I think looking at what impacts people is what makes a good story. But with storytelling, yes, overall, I think the main thing is to look at who it affects, look at who your topic affects. I think that's always most important. And I think that will always make you a better journalist and a better writer.
So how are some of the ways that you do that or have done that, especially when you're writing about topics that are maybe a little bit more, not esoteric, that's the wrong word, but like removed from your from day-to-day life, or like maybe don't have that obvious hook that of how this affects people or how this affects somebody? How do you as a writer in your current job and in all your jobs, how do you go about finding that kind of that hook to the story, or that how it affects somebody that to kind of build on?
I think a lot of it has to do with front loading your research. I don't think you can really go into a story right away. You can go into a story with like how okay. So looking at hooks. Okay. So like I was saying, like you can go in, but you can't force a story, right? So a lot of times you might have in mind like what you want to talk about, but then, you talk to a bunch of people and then it's kind of like dominoes. You're like, oh, well, here's another story from here and here's another story from here. So I always front load the way I do stuff. I always front load and talk to a bunch of people first from different aspects of a topic. And, a lot of times for my PR News stuff, I'll talk to a brand, but then I'll talk to somebody on the agency side, but then I'll talk to somebody, that, might be a consumer. And then kind of the story will kind of take a life of its own from there. So, they say things like follow the money, but it's also like, I guess kind of follow the quotes, follow the story kind of as it goes, and you'll kind of find a path from there.
So I ask everybody I have on my podcast this, and I'll ask you, what's the best thing that you've read lately?
Ooh, best thing that I've read lately. Okay, so this is going to be kind of not strange, but different, digital. There is a woman who's very prominent in the communications committee called Amber Nashland, and she works right now for LinkedIn. But she's done a bunch of, communications consulting. I've been following her for years. She's done a lot of work in the community management sector as well as social media. And she posted a great article. I guess would you call it an article? A post? Something? I don't know. On LinkedIn, you can do that now. You can post, you can create your own articles.
Sure.
I see her. Okay.
Article, we'll go with it. Sure.
Yeah. So she is very honest and has had a great career. But she wrote a piece yesterday called When Uncertainty Kicks Anxiety and Self-Doubt into Overdrive. So everybody's kind of uncertain about things right now. Like you're saying, everybody's kind of stressed out. So this article was, came from her own personal, soul, her own personal space, and gave some really great guidelines and just like kind of how to get through all of this. For example, number one, it's like resist the urge to isolate yourself. I know we need to do some of that now, but, like I was saying, if you want to hop in a Slack group chat with someone, or you want to give someone a call, just try and do those things so you're not completely isolating yourself. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Kind of look at your emotions and see how you're feeling. Lead with empathy. Remember, to just kind of give everyone a break. So anyway, so instead of a book, I'm also reading a great book right now. It's called Real Artists Have Day Jobs, and it's by this fabulous, fantastic, funny writer, and it's kind of a collection of short stories that she has in there. But that's a great book as well that I'm reading. But really, what has kind of made me stop in my tracks yesterday was reading this article from Amber Naslund on LinkedIn.
Okay. This is fantastic. People, if you're listening, get Nicole on your podcast. She should have more than one, or she should be on more than one. This was outstanding. You should have your own by this point too, so.
Oh God. My first major at Bonaventure was broadcast journalism.
So was mine. So mine was too, and then I spent a semester at WSBU, and I'm old. I'm even older than you. So we were actually still using tape, and I'm like, no, I don't like doing this. No, this is not fun. Then I went down to the BV. I'm like, oh, this is the student newspaper. I'm like, yeah, this is more my speed. But yeah, I went to be a broadcaster, and then realized no. Now I am podcasting 25 years later. Because I'm old.
There you go.
So
full circle.
Exactly. All right, Nicole, thanks so much for joining us this week, and take care.
Thank you. Take care as well.
As always, thanks for listening to The Other 51. You can find show notes for this episode and all our episodes at sportsmediaguy.com on the Other 51 tab. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. I can highly recommend Overcast for this. Our theme music is by Ellie Moritz.